Good morning, everybody. Gig log number 20. So I can't believe I've hit the 20th gig log of this series. I honestly wouldn't have even thought I had one that was going to ever be published out there, but here we are, number 20. Today is Catherine and Don's big day. I'm at Chalet on Hudson. Unfortunately, they're closing down after the end of this season. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but hopefully we'll make the most fun out of this. Catherine and Don, huge geeked out friends of mine now. We bond over Star Wars. We bond over Harry Potter. What more can I say? I mean, stuff like that is just, I couldn't ask for anything more. Couple of different things going out today. Rented out this Sony a6400 camera. This is actually paired with a Sigma 16mm f1.4 lens. Now, this has been told to me that this combination is just ridiculously great in low light and would be really great for this application. Something like this definitely costs a little bit. You know, the body itself I think is around $900 new. The lens itself I think is somewhere between $400 to $600 right now, so it's not super cheap. But to go to the next step up, if you get something like the AS7 II, which is like the king of low light, you're easily paying more than twice for the body. Of course, the glass would be the same cost in that regard, but this looks pretty competent. I played with this overnight just to try to familiarize myself, and luckily the RX100 has some similar functionality in general. Some of the things are kind of spread out a little different. But I'm going to be curious to see how everything looks on this. I'm hoping the goal of this is the lower the ISO that I can shoot, that means the crisper the video is going to look. I don't think I'm going to do 4K on this. I think I'm going to stick with 1080 just for maintaining battery life and also just card space. I only have a couple 64 gig cards to use, and I could easily use up just a ton of space on this. So I'm going to try out the 1080 option, see how everything looks. And if this becomes like the go-to camera for me, I'd probably get bigger cards, try shooting in 4K for next year. But this is just a rental. And I am going to do a deeper video on this compared to something like the RX100, just to see where things are. Luckily with the RX100, I did take the backing off where the screen was. It was just completely broken. But I can see through the viewfinder, so I'm going to try to take some stills with it, and maybe also as a really quick, just kind of pan and scan camera. See where things kind of lie on that, but it's not super useful as just kind of my everyday camera now, but at least is still functional. But other than that, I'm going to pack the van here and get ready to go. So let's see what happens today. Everybody, everything's set up. Definitely took me a little longer than I expected. It was about 90 minutes in total, with also setting up ceremony as well. But of course, setting up the lights for the first time, had to kind of work things around a couple different ways. Had a little bit of problems threading a couple things, and that was just kind of an alignment. But I'm going to use my RX 105 for some behind the scenes shots, but I want to kind of give you the layout of everything. Of course, my EV50s, always pretty standard, still the NS7 III, still Virtual DJ 2020. Again, been super solid. The newest things, of course, the camera that I'm recording on this main shot right here, which I'll focus on right here. Of course, not having the backing of this camera doesn't help much, but the Sony a6400. And lastly, of course, we have our new lighting rig set up. Now, originally I wanted to powder coat this all black. That way everything just had this kind of black, sleek look, or silver to kind of match some of this, but what can you do? That's going to probably be a next year project if I keep these stands. I may opt, if I get a larger vehicle, to just get some global trusses, something that's just together to begin with. But these are pretty damn solid. I really can't complain. Very lightweight for what they are. Of course, I got my Intimidator 350s set up. Nothing DMX or anything like that. Just going off sound active on those. Same thing for my Wash FX2s. Now, originally, I did want to mount them up here, but just being able to find somebody to do it in time, and also the powder coating, everything just wasn't going to happen. So on the floor, they're really not bad. I kind of looked around a little bit. I've angled them out just slightly, and it still floods the area really nice with it, so I'm probably going to keep it like that. Might tone back in ever so slightly. Probably the one interesting thing, because my speakers are out ever so more slightly, but this is blocking. I'm definitely hearing a little bit less from the booth. I never worked here with my 50s before. I had my Yamahas prior, but this is a pretty easy, standard setup. I do want to cut some of the time down on the lighting button. And for the reason we're here today, please get out of your seats and give it up for Mr. and Mrs. Fernandez.
Here we come, here we go, we gotta rock, 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 rock. I'm gonna try for it. Yeah, yeah. Just a little bit, hey, baby, just a little bit.
Oh, baby, when you talk like that, you make a woman go mad.
Young Ho, y'all know when the flow is loco. Young B and the ROC. Uh-oh. Bob Marley, walking like a donkey. Goodness me, get to see I'm gonna go. Despacito, suave, suavecito. Nos vamos pegando poquito a poquito. Cuando tú me
I like the way you work it. Drop tight all day, every day.
Let's get it percolating while you're waiting. So just dance for my ABC. Easy as 1, 2, 3. All simple as go.
Hey girl, na 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 na, say goodbye. Don't believe me, just watch. Hey, 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 oh. Come here, girl.
Go ahead, be gone with it.
Come to the back.
Go ahead, be gone with it.
Dance, dance like it's the last night of your life. You gotta let me know which way to go, 'cause I need to.
Roll it up, blow it up, drink it up, throw it up tonight.
Music, DJ, let it play. I just can't refuse.
What you
500 miles
Make it last forever. Friendship never ends.
Get down, girl, go ahead, get down. Get down, girl, go ahead.
I said, my niece, my witness. The brother had it going on with something kinda,
Nodding my head like yeah, moving my hips like yeah. I love it, I don't care.
Everybody give it up for Catherine and Don one more time. All right, everybody, if you look behind me, I'm actually looking at the footage that I shot last night. The majority of this is with the A6400. Overall, very pleased. I'm going to get into a much deeper video on my video looks for this whole year and come up with some conclusions on that. But really, really pleased with this. Let's dive in more specifically to this 20th gig log, and I would have never imagined that I did one, let alone 20, and I really could not be happier with the way that this wedding went, the way this whole season went. Being able to geek out with my couples, Catherine and Don, were just so awesome to begin with, and we immediately bonded on things like Harry Potter and Star Wars. I mean, right at the wedding, we were like, "Did you watch the Mandalorian, cuts? They now have a 27-minute review out there for some of the people. They've thrown in their 2 cents. Of course, Rise of Skywalker, and we're geeking out on this, and I love it when we have those kind of bonding moments with couples. It just makes things just seem so much better, so much special. And to be honest, this whole season, I don't know why particularly this season, and I've always, make great friends with the majority of my couples, but for whatever reason this year, everything just seemed to connect on a deeper plane. And I really have to shout out to all my couples for this year. Is like every single one had something really, really special within their personality, within their personal likes, be it music, movies, television, books, whatever the case may be. I had one couple, we were talking, and they saw my Calvin and Hobbes collection behind me. And that was just, when you have a couple that pays that kind of close attention to the video, when you're doing a video chat and, notices something like that, that's just, it's just awesome. But, a few things to kind of talk about tonight. First and foremost, of course, this was the debut of my new lighting. And overall, I'm pretty pleased with it. The Intimidators were definitely very solid. A little bit on the heavier side. Got to do a little bit additional setup and configuration to kind of get those working right. The totems themselves, the Nova Pros, are quite decent. It did take a little bit more time than I had planned to set up. Now, I try to pre-stage everything. As you see, I do with my setup. I try to kind of gather everything together as much as possible, so it saves down on time, especially cables, whatever the path that it takes to just shorten down the time for both setup and breakdown. I'm all about it. These weren't too bad, but in the grand scheme of things, it took me quite a bit of time to make sure everything was threading right, to make sure everything was nice. It was still relatively quick, but in the grand scheme, it did take quite a bit of time compared to my normal setup. I got my normal setup done in almost the same time as it was getting the lights up and starting those to be tested. Now, granted, my first outing with it, so naturally I could probably shave a little bit of time off of it, but I don't think it would be a whole lot. So I'm thinking the more likelihood as we get into 2020, if I sell more, dance lighting options, that if I do get my dedicated van or trailer for next year, that I'm thinking we're just going to go with some pre-done up regular totems, so it'll be even a little bit stronger, and just have those set up, put them on wheels, wheel them in, wheel them out. Just a lot less time to get that all together. But naturally, I need the space, and my minivan, as spacious as it is, just doesn't have a lot to accommodate that unless I fold down both my seats. There's a lot more organization to get that all together. So I'm going to definitely just keep the Nova Pros for now. But if the capabilities come up there where I do get that van and I'm starting to see more dance lighting requests, then that's the route that I would go. But overall, I really can't complain. The wash FXs were just ridiculously bright, even on the floor. And I really didn't want them initially set up on the floor. I originally had this option where I was going to weld a piece onto the top of the plane where the Intimidators were mounted and then hang them off of that. But I wanted it done right. I wanted it powder coated. I wanted everything to look really sharp. And the metal shops that are near me just couldn't get it done in time. So, I went to plan B. And I didn't want to make a big rush of it anyways. This was the only gig that was running this particular lighting rig. So I was like, you know what, we'll just do this test run, see how everything goes, and make modifications as necessary. But at least I know I can put them on the floor, and they work pretty well. And I could even see not even having the moving heads, just putting the wash effects on top. It might look a little bit from the smaller side, compared to the size of the totem itself, but damn if they're not bright. Music wise, it was a little bit more challenge, kind of getting everybody on the floor as much as possible. You would get something like Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer, that was pretty solid. When a ZZ Top, that kind of shut off people. Same thing for 80s music, 90s music, 2000s. I knew the couple didn't want too much on the new side. I actually only threw in like one Cardi B song, and that was after a few requests, and I kind of hit them up. It's like, hey, I've had a lot of requests. This might work a little well. And it definitely had its moment in the night. My dinner set was definitely that more classic R&B vibe, and everybody was really just bouncing to that, so that was really fun. But what can I say? The season's over. I'm at gig log number 20. And again, thank you everybody. Thank you everybody who has subscribed to my channel. We hit over 1,000. I couldn't be more pleased with that. Hopefully we'll keep on increasing those numbers over time. I have a lot ready coming up for the rest of this channel. Of course, some gig logs for next year. Got a lot of my 4 DJs only stuff. I have a couple bigger plans too for some more cinematic type things coming out, but that'll take a little time and effort kind of to get all that together. But there's a lot planned and stored. Once again, thank you for watching this gig log. Thank you for checking out everything on my channel. Stay tuned, everybody.